A dog waits beside a door. Not for minutes, sometimes for hours, sometimes long after the person it's waiting for is never coming back. And the strange part is, it keeps waiting anyway. Not because it was told to, not because it expects food, just waiting. Which raises a question that science still struggles to answer clearly. If animals don't understand love, why does losing someone seem to change them? Humans tend to assume animals operate on instinct alone, a simple biological program. Eat when hungry, run when threatened, stay close to safety, nothing emotional, nothing deeper. At least, that's the explanation we prefer. Because once you begin questioning that idea, the line between human emotion and animal behavior becomes much harder to separate. And some animal behaviors become very difficult to explain. In 2011, researchers studying dogs at Emory University trained several dogs to remain still inside MRI scanners while awake, not sedated. Awake. The scans focused on the caudate nucleus, a region associated in humans with reward, emotional attachment, and positive expectation. When the dogs smelled the scent of familiar humans, activity in that region increased significantly. The response was measurable. Their brains reacted differently to someone they knew. Not food, not commands, a person. But the unsettling part was not the scan itself. It was what the result implied. Because recognition alone is simple, even machines can recognize patterns. But attachment changes behavior, and animals do things that look disturbingly close to attachment. Some dogs stop eating after losing an owner. Some cats continue sleeping in places where a person used to sit. Elephants have been documented returning to the bones of dead family members years later, touching them carefully with their trunks before moving on. Not once, repeatedly. Researchers are extremely careful with interpretation here. Science avoids emotional language unless it can be measured directly. No serious researcher wants to casually claim an elephant feels grief the same way a human does, but the behavior creates a problem, because the pattern becomes difficult to ignore. In Kenya, wildlife researchers observed elephant families slowing down when passing the remains of other elephants. Sometimes they paused completely. Sometimes younger elephants reached out with their trunks while older members stood nearby watching. They did not behave this way around random bones from other species, only elephants, only their own, which suggests something more specific than curiosity. And then there are whales. In multiple recorded cases, orcas and humpbacks have been observed supporting dying companions near the surface of the water for hours, sometimes longer. Marine biologists call this epimeletic behavior, a clinical term for something that, from a distance, looks painfully familiar, refusing to let go. The deeper you look into animal behavior, the stranger the boundary becomes. Because instinct explains survival extremely well, but it does not always explain persistence. It does not explain waiting. It does not explain why some animals continue behaviors after all biological benefit has disappeared. A predator hunts because it is hungry. That makes sense. A bird flees danger because survival depends on it. That also makes sense. But a dog lying beside the bed of a dying owner for hours, even when confused, even when stressed, even when exhausted, does not fit as neatly into survival logic. Something more complicated may be happening. And this is where the question becomes uncomfortable, not for animals, for us. Because humans like to believe love belongs to language, we describe it, define it, write poems about it. We treat emotion as something that becomes real only once it can be explained. But nature may not work that way. Animals do not describe love. They demonstrate attachment through behavior, through proximity, through memory, through return. A wolf recognizes members of its pack after long separation. Penguins locate specific mates among thousands of identical calls. Dogs can distinguish emotional tone in human voices with measurable accuracy. Again and again, animals behave as though connection matters to them. Not abstractly, physically, neurologically, socially, and maybe that is why humans feel so unsettled by these moments. Because they force us to confront the possibility that emotions are older than language itself. That attachment did not begin with humans. Only the vocabulary did. So, do animals know they're loved? Science still cannot answer that directly. It can measure hormones, brain activity, behavioral changes, stress responses, recognition patterns. But the internal experience behind those things remains inaccessible. The data can observe the outside, not the feeling itself. which means there is still no instrument capable of fully measuring what happens when a dog waits by a door long after footsteps stop coming, or what an elephant experiences when it touches the bones of another elephant years later, or why some animals remain beside dying companions long after survival tells them to leave. But maybe the answer was never hidden in language to begin with. Maybe love does not start when something learns to describe it. Maybe it begins much earlier than that, in memory, in recognition, in choosing to stay. And if losing someone can change an animal, then perhaps what existed before that loss was never instinct alone. Maybe it was something far more ancient. Something humans did not invent, only named.